dealing with a bully, if you've been with a narcissist, you've been with a bully. My guest today is Bill Eddy. He is the founder of the High Conflict Institute in California, an author of books on, I call him the father of communication, communicating with a narcissist, communicating with everybody that's in high conflict situations. His books are groundbreaking, one called Biff, Biff. And he's got that in all sorts of colors for co-parenting and for this and for that. And he teaches people how to communicate, and he is an expert in this type of behaviors. So today we're going to talk about the link between the narcissist and the bully. And I hope that you learned something. My name is Tracy Malone, and I am the founder of narcissistabusesupport.com. And I am a coach, and I help people all over the world get through this narcissistic stuff. So let's go meet Bill Eddy. But if you happen to need me, you'll find the information down below for more information. Bill Eddy is a gem in our community, and we're so grateful to have him. So let's go meet Bill right now. Hi, Bill. Welcome back to my show. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks so much, Tracy. Glad to be back on again.
Well, today we're talking about adult bullies, and you have a new book that's coming out called or maybe it's out, you'll tell me that in a second, Our New World of Adult Bullies, How to Spot Them, How to Stop Them. Before we start in the book, what compelled you to write this book at this time?
Well, I think at this point in my career, I've been teaching a lot, writing a lot, developing methods for kind of helping people manage the high conflict people in their life. And I really wanted to help people not get into these situations, not get into these relationships, and to be able to see the warning signs. But also, bullies seem to be the most high conflict people. And so I wanted to really kind of warn people more, give them some patterns of behavior they can see at a distance so that they don't get engaged and then have to get extracted from these relationships. So it's really to help people before they get in, but also if they're in a situation, how to help them get out.
Mhm. And we're going to talk about not only relationship bullies, but we're going to talk about work bullies. And a bully is a bully no matter where they are. And they can start off as a little tiny bully in high school, beating up kids, and then they grow up to be even worse.
A percent do, because one thing I say, and I say early on, is most childhood bullies outgrow it in childhood. And that what we're seeing, though, the bullies that we see as adult bullies mostly were childhood bullies as well, but they didn't grow out of it. They got reinforced for it or were so traumatized that they took on this approach to all relationships. And like you said, it isn't just relationship bullies, it's workplace, community, certainly online.
Mhm.
It's everywhere, and it's a pattern of behavior that they have that's really identifiable. People, I like to say, they're hidden in plain sight if you know what to look for.
Absolutely. And we've even heard of neighbor bullies. They're everywhere. I mean, it's you're going to find them at Starbucks, and you're going to find them at the most expensive fancy restaurant complaining that their steak wasn't right, and then they'll bully everybody and want to not pay and all of the other kind of stuff that they think entitlement to. But why is bullying and bullies in our society so prevalent now?
Well, it seems like two things are happening. They both have to do with media. That a lot of our screen media today is competing. And I say screen media like television, movies, social media. They give images of bullying. Why do they do that? Because that's what grabs your mind. That's what grabs your amygdala, danger, what's happening, I need to know. And so they kind of grab our brains and compete with each other, showing the worst behavior. And so we see more and more bad behavior as a routine way to get you to watch our program or to, communicate with me. But that's one part of it. The other is about 5 to 10% of people have these bully personalities, but they kept themselves in check and they're mostly isolated up until now. But with social media, they're finding each other and reinforcing each other's behavior and, in a sense, getting entrenched with their bad behavior rather than adopting the good social behavior of their communities. And that really struck me when I read about, mass shooters being mostly young men, and that most of them have a social media network. And in many ways, they're trying to impress their friends who are antisocial. And it's frightening, but that's what we see really around the world, not just in the US.
Yeah. And you mentioned so bully personalities. Are we
Yeah.
defining like narcissists, sociopaths? Are there others that should be in that bully personality arena?
Well, that's most of them, I think, because, and we'll start with narcissists, as I'm sure your your listeners would prefer, and that is that narcissists really do. People think of narcissists as self-centered. Well, it's more severe than that when you get into a personality disorder. In order to feel superior to people, they have to put somebody down. And so much of that is bullying behavior. They have a lack of empathy. And empathy is one of the breaks that most of us have that stop us from saying that mean or nasty comment, that stop us from, you know, interfering with other people's relationships. But they don't have that. It's like a wire's missing. And so they're okay with hurting people to get where they want to go. And so narcissists are certainly a significant part of bully personalities. But you also mentioned sociopaths or antisocial personality. And they also are a lot of our bully personalities, maybe the biggest group because they're very aggressive, they lack remorse, they generally lack empathy as well, and so they're often intent on hurting people. Some of them get pleasure out of hurting people, and bullying is one way you can do it and deny it. Oh, I just said that, her mother was a lizard or something like that. That's just doesn't mean anything. And it's like, well, to the person you've said that to, that means maybe I'm in danger. Maybe you're aggressive and you're going to hurt me, and this is where you start. And so there's that. I also think to some extent that we see borderline personality present in some bullies. And they say that male domestic violence perpetrators that probably borderline personality disorder may be the most prevalent style of male domestic violence perpetrators. So I include that. And a characteristic, a lack of breaks for them is they lack emotional self-control. And so that's why, they can beat up their partner or, you know, cling to a child or a partner that wants to get away. So these patterns, and I mentioned in the book, these patterns may be present, but not everybody with a narcissistic diagnosis, borderline diagnosis, or even antisocial diagnosis is a bully. So it's kind of like subcategories of subcategories.
Again, spectrum-esque, I mean, it's like some are
Yeah.
going to be liars and some are not. Some are going to beat you and some are not. And in this bully category, while we can certainly paint the wall with the possibility of being a bully as a narcissist or sociopath or borderline, right? Um, I think at the same time that they're not all that. And I have clients come to me and go, I read the red flag list and this person doesn't have two of them, so they must not be. And I'm like, yeah, but they had 70, like they had all these things, but you're like honing in on just that one little trickle of they didn't do that. So we don't want people to think that all narcissists are bullies because that covert type can be, secretly a bully, but some of them are outright at work and things like that, bullies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of my favorite examples is in the workplace is, and I like to say a general thing is we don't want to judge bullies. What we want to do is develop strategies for managing, setting limits, having consequences so we're protected from their bullying, but they may have something to contribute. And the person I think of is Steve Jobs, the inventor of all our little devices or a significant promoter of them. And he had a big reputation as a bully in Silicon Valley. And yet, because he was well managed, he had a good management team that kind of reined him in from like impulsively firing 200 people in a division and stuff like that, which he wanted to do, but they talked him out of it. So he had something to contribute, and he was a bully, and he was restrained. And that's the key, is the goal isn't to eliminate bullies. The goal is to restrain them enough that we can get along with them and still benefit from what they have to contribute.
And that makes a lot of sense. So when we're thinking about bullies, why do they keep repeatedly getting away with this? Like, again, we're talking about people, and you just used a very famous person. Like, again, they had to. Somebody's job was to restrain him. Why is it that
Right.
it's so commonplace that it's just happening all the time?
Well, I think we're not prepared. And in a way, before, the last 10, 20 years, mostly bullies were on the fringe of society. And they were isolated because people didn't like their behavior in families, in the workplace, neighborhoods. You don't grow up pushing people around without some people pushing back, and you're learning, oops, I went too far this time. So what happens is we're not prepared, I think, for the influx of bullies into society today. And again, as I said, I think that's a lot the media is promoting bully behavior, but we're not ready for it around us. And I just want to give you a great example. I'll try not to be timely
Oh, you're
with this, but recently in the United States Congress, there was a committee where someone made a bullying comment and the chair of the committee just ignored it. So about another member, and then that other member made a bullying comment about the first person, and then a third person joined in. And I totally believe that the chairperson of the meeting was completely caught off guard. And yet, that's what we teach. We teach you need to be aware. You need to be ready. You need to know that anywhere bullies will pop up in your life these days. And so we have to set limits. And we developed a method, a respectful meeting policy for chairs of committee meetings. And so I published a Psychology Today blog on that now to help show people this is what you can do. But people just aren't prepared, so they're very tolerant. And most people are nice people, so they don't like to like intervene with other people's comments and behavior. It feels rude to interrupt. But when a bully is bullying somebody, making it personal, it would be good to interrupt and say, "Hey, buddy, you can't do that here. That's not okay." And so slowly, I think, as a society, we're just starting to realize this now.
And I think what you were saying is the person interrupting the bully also has a very big fear. If I step in, this could escalate more. If you're talking about that Senate thing, like, let's just pretend it didn't happen, let's get by, next question, and we're just passing it and trying to avoid it. But that's not the way, because as you saw, the next step was bing, 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 and it was all out
Right.
the door, right? So, learning to do it and always understanding that there would be risk of stepping up and stopping them, because you could easily become the next mortal enemy, and that's what a lot of people are afraid of. If I step in, I'm putting myself at risk to be the enemy of the bully, and that's not a healthy place.
Right. And so people get scared by that behavior. It's disorienting. They don't know, well, what should I do? I think I'm going to kind of avoid, and that's That's what most people do. They tiptoe around and hope that that they don't become a target.
Mhm.
But anybody can and everybody will these days, is what I say. So best to be prepared, then you don't engage the bully and they go somewhere else or they stop their behavior.
Yeah. And I was recently reading Elon Musk's book, and I had never really known a lot about him. But oh my gosh, the bully stories in there and the threats and the everybody walking on eggshells, it was overwhelming. So you talked about the Apple guy, and now I'm talking about Elon Musk, and I'm just putting them in a corporate bucket for us instead of naming. It just, why are these high-powered innovators, Steve Jobs and all of them that have been there, why are they able to be in this high powered position and still be a bully?
Well, they have aggressive personalities, which helps them get their ideas promoted. They need to get investors, and so narcissists are the most seductive. Well, narcissists and sociopaths are the most seductive personalities, including seducing investors. I've got this brilliant new invention. Give me a half a million, a couple $1 million, and it'll be well worth your while. And there's setbacks, but their personalities keep them going forward because they believe in themselves so much. So it reinforces these kinds of personalities. But the problem is they can't stop themselves. And that's across the board for bullies. They can't stop themselves. So they push and they push. And sometimes they create really big businesses and then crash them. And, like Enron was an example of that a couple decades ago. The bullying, and they say at the head of that was a narcissist and a sociopath. And so they broke the rules, but they believed in themselves so much they thought they could get away with it. And it all collapsed. And, that's what happened. So it's tempting, but investors are learning how to set limits, and that's part of what I talk about in the book.
So if we're talking about that they believe in themselves with this like almighty kind of sword, do they know they're bullying, or they just are in a place where, again, sort of unconsciously, this is how we get things done, is we make them, or do they really go, I'm being a bully, so what?
I think, and I've worked as a therapist, as a consultant, as a lawyer, as a mediator, really spanning the last 40 years. And I believe that they're not very self-aware, that there's a lack of self-awareness, and it's because it's part of their personality. This is how they've been for many of them their whole life.
Mhm.
And so they're doing what they think is necessary to accomplish the next goal. And in many cases, narcissists are proud of being the person that pushed other people aside and moved forward. And so it's like, hey, so I'm a narcissist. What's your problem? And but they don't really absorb the fact that this is not good behavior in most relationships. And when we talk about a narcissistic personality, we're talking about a problem. Everybody's got some self-centeredness. Everyone bounces back and gets up again, or most people do. And that's human nature, and that's a good thing. But when it gets to where we start calling people a narcissist, technically speaking, it means there's a problem with their interpersonal behavior.
That makes
And they
sense.
don't recognize it because this is who I am. This is necessary and normal, they think.
And their lack of empathy has a big part in making
Right.
bullying easier. Because if you or I were to go bully someone, we'd feel terrible. We would like, oh gosh, did I hurt you? I'm so sorry. That's not the personality we're talking about with bullies.
Right. And what's amazing to me is people come up after I give seminars and presentations and they'll say, well, I have a little bit of that, I think. Am I, a narcissist or a sociopath? And I said, so you're reflecting on yourself. They said, yeah. And so did you learn some things you might try? Oh, yeah, I'm going to change some things. Well, that's not the problem. The problem is people that don't reflect and don't change. And that's when we call it a personality disorder. So, most people doubt themselves, and that's a good thing as long as doesn't immobilize them. But self-doubts, reflection, going, oops, sorry, buddy, that's healthy people. That's the good stuff.
That we're all
That's
going to make mistakes.
Yeah, that's who I want to be in relationships with, is people that go, oops, sorry about that. Or, oh, I think I shouldn't have said that. And, there's an interchange and an equality to it. And I think that's what people want. And bullies don't get that. They don't get like real friends. And it's sad for them, but they keep bullying and it keeps pushing people away.
Absolutely, absolutely. I know we talked about the media connection here. Is there anything else that I've missed in here? Because, I know watching my news, I'm scared to death of the others. I don't even know who the others are. To me, Muslims and Mexicans and people, they're not the others. I'm like, the others are the people that are scaring me. And so, how is that playing a role in amplifying the bullying?
Well, it's fascinating, and I have a chapter on this in the book, and it's called The Bully's Story. And I think that the media really is setting us up for the bully story. So here's how this works, and let me know if this sounds complicated, because it really isn't that complicated. But bullies generally, first of all, bullies talk a lot. They are constantly telling their story because they're trying to get people to think their way. Some people call it gaslighting. You didn't see what you saw. This is what you saw. But the bully story has three parts. It's a terrible crisis, terrible danger. There's an evil person behind it, and you need a hero to save you from it. And that's me, says the bully. Well, what's interesting, and this gets into the psychology stuff, is this happens to activate some of our primitive emotions. And one of the resources I looked at said we have 7 primitive emotional systems in common with all mammals. So this is a real primitive part of us. And so one of those is fear. And this is an automatic emotional system. One of those is rage. And you think of a raging bull. Well, you push us far enough, we go into our primitive rage. Then there's caring, and there's what they call panic grief. When you see somebody else in a panic or grieving, you want to help them. Well, all mammals have this. They care for each other at a primitive level, and especially for their young. Well, what I see bullies doing, they activate fear, they activate rage, and they activate what I call love loyalty. That's the caring, panic, grief stuff combined. They activate a sense that I love you and I'm loyal to you and I want to protect you and save you from harm. So what bullies do, and it's fascinating, they activate this fear. Like let's take domestic violence for an example. So the bully says you can't trust anybody but me. And people out there, they don't care about you. So they create a sense of fear. And they may lie to get there. Then they create, those people can't be trusted. And I have a story in the book about a famous singer and musician who got into a bullying relationship, and her self-esteem just went down the tubes until she finally was able to get out and talk about it. But she turned her rage inward against herself. It's my fault. There's something wrong with me. And the guy said, you can't trust your colleagues. They won't care about you. You can only trust me, and you need to be loyal to me. And I love you, and my love should be enough. So they activate these primitive emotional responses that we're not even conscious of. And we feel ourselves getting pulled into their story, the bully's story, and kind of out of our own awareness of ourselves. I don't like what's happening, but there must be something wrong with me. And so people turn that anger inward, they become immobilized, depressed, and it gets harder to get out of a bullying relationship. What's interesting, this woman said, and she's from England, said, I had a, expensive apartment in London. I had a great creative team, but I'm over here in Los Angeles and my boyfriend has convinced me I'm in danger from my creative team. It's my fault. And he's the one that's the source of all love, and I have to be loyal to him. And she bought the story and fortunately got out. But a lot of people don't get out or don't get out that easily, unless, of course, they listen to your podcast.
Yeah, that was a helpful story. It really helps illustrate just, the power and the control portion of this because we're talking
Yes.
bully and people are going mean, bully being mean. No, it's the control, it's
Yes.
the relation, it's almost the creation of the others, like we talked about. All of your team doesn't, no, they're not, you gotta listen to me. So it is a lot tied together, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And they'll often say that about family members. So you don't need your family members. Isn't my love enough for you? And bullies tend to isolate people. And that's one of the first things to fight back is don't get isolated. Talk to somebody about it and don't blame yourself. This is happening to you. You're not causing this. No one deserves to be bullied,
Mhm.
is the bottom line.
Absolutely, absolutely. So did I miss anything? Anything you want to share?
Well, I've got lots of stories. The book's got 60 examples in it. I want to show the patterns of behavior of bullies so you can see them sooner. I
Mhm.
have 10 what I call basically hidden patterns of behavior that are hidden in plain sight.
Mhm.
So once you know these, you go, oh, there it is. Like the bully story is one of the patterns. Now I've explained it, your listeners hopefully will go, oh, I see one happening right now in my family.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get sucked in and I'm not going to blame myself. That's the bully story. Or you see it in the news, in communities, all, meetings, etc.
Mhm.
Um, so anyway, so 10 patterns and then 6 strategies for overcoming these, for stopping bullies. And like I said, it's not to eliminate bullies, it's to stop the bullying behavior. Although some people may end up in prison for life, there are a percent of people like that.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes it's the legal system that it takes to stop a bully. We think of like Harvey Weinstein, big movie producer. Um, well, he's in prison for the rest of his life, and that's the protecting society. Apparently, he sexually harassed or assaulted up to 80 women. And they felt that self doubt, turned the anger inward. I should have fought back, but I didn't. There's something wrong with me. No, there's nothing wrong with you. This should not have happened to you. It's terrible. So, anyway, so the warning signs and then the strategies is, and I'll briefly, I don't know how brief I need to be, but I'll briefly say the strategies. First is recognize these patterns and go, okay, that's a bully and they're engaged in bullying. Then pull the plug on the bully. Is there some way you're supporting the bully, like keeping it a secret? Sometimes people are paying some of the bully's expenses, and they're embarrassed to, admit to anybody that this is happening. So pull the plug on the bully. Then set limits. Say, if you cross this line, I'm not going to be able to help you, or I'm going to have to leave, or I'm going to have to end the conversation, or we're going to have to fire you, or whatever. So set limits. Then impose consequences. If they violate the limit, then you need to impose the consequences. I give some examples in there of people who were fired from their employers. And of course, relationships where people say, this is just too much. Um, let's see, that's 4. Then the fifth is educating others about the bully dynamics. And then that's the fifth. The sixth is supporting other people who are dealing with a bully, standing by them, saying, that's not okay. Hey, Joe, cut it out. That's enough.
Mhm.
That's what bystanders need to get comfortable doing.
Mhm.
And so these are some strategies. One thing I want to emphasize is for people to have an encouraging statement for themselves is like, it's not about me, or it's unreasonable. What this person's saying and doing is totally unreasonable. Even if you don't feel safe to talk to somebody else, talk to yourself and don't take it on. Don't take the bullying inside and join in self-criticism. It's not about you.
Mhm. As you were talking, a whole segment of my clientele was coming to mind, and I was like, bing, bing. A lot of parents have adult children who have married, say, a narcissistic bully, and
Right.
standing up to them, setting boundaries with them, causes them to lose their grandchildren. So the consequences to them from the bully role is so high that they often, I have a video out there, I don't even know how many views, but there's a lot of comments and a lot of videos where the parents are like, I tried to stand up. I even did the fake apology. Nothing is working, and now I've lost my child. So how does this play into that?
I think that's common, and that people have to be careful not to not to overplay, um, not to kind of leap over their child to defend their adult child. They've got to work with their adult child, be available, have encouraging words. You can always come and talk to me. You can always come back to me. Um, but yes, it backfires. And so what you want to do is help that person. No, someday you may see what I see,
Mhm.
and I hope you'll come to me. And that often is what happens. There's some kind of incident, and the person's like, okay, now I get it. This is just beyond repair, and I need to get out. I think it helps for people to think in terms of dealing with bullies as somewhat dealing with a cult, because bullies are like cults. They get into your head.
Mhm.
And so they isolate people, and then people are afraid to go outside of the cult, which may just be two people.
Mhm.
Um, but as happens with a lot of cults, family members were here for you. Eventually, they come in and say, "Oh, help," and be there to help. Be there to help. But if you overplay your hand, the bully is going to make you the new target of blame and convince your child, that they can't trust you. And they'll lie about you, but they'll get in the way. So you've got to work with your adult child. You can't save them from this. In most situations, there may be some where it's like saving someone from a cult,
Yeah.
but most of the time, you've got to support your adult child.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you for adding that bonus, because I was just like thinking of all those people going, they would listen to this and go, we can't do that. We'll lose our child if we stand up to the bully or set boundaries with them. So this has been such an amazing interview. Thank you again for being here, Bill. I'm going to put the book link down below so everybody can find it and encourage them to reach out and get the book and start to learn how to combat bullies.
Great. Well, thanks so much, Tracy. Good to be with you again.
You too. Well, I hope you guys found that helpful. And if you made it to here, you probably just read you listened to his little golden part there about the how we react and how dangerous it is and how scary it is to set a boundary with a bully, because there could be consequences, as the scenario I just said about daughters and sons-in-law. You could lose your children if you stand up to the bill, or your grandchildren to the bully. So he gave us some good feedback on that. So I will put the link to his book below. It is called Our New World of Adult Bullies: How to Stop Them and How to Spot Them and How to Stop Them. This is Tracy Malone from narcissistabusesupport.com. If you're dealing with a narcissistic bully, I'm here to help you. And you can find all the details about reaching out and getting help from me down below. So I will see you again next time. Thank you.